right, so welcome back, everyone. Again, a very special good morning to you, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. We're just getting news this morning of another murder, this time in the vicinity of the breakfast shed. We are told that the incident, police are there right now, and the incident happened at around 4 minutes to 6 this morning. So there's a body on the ground at this time, So, again, the crime situation we are dealing with this morning. So, 16 murders for this year already, 576 at the end of last year. The police commissioner says this is a 5% reduction. Weighing in on the crime situation this morning, we do have criminologist Mr. Darius Figuera. Mr. Figuera, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. Happy New Year.
Morning. Thank you very much. All the best to you and the staff and the viewers.
Yes, thank you very much, and always we appreciate your contribution, Mr. Figuera. Well, I don't know if you saw the Daily Express this morning. Bloody weekend, and the police commissioner of Trinidad and Tobago, Earl Christopher, is saying that the tides will turn. Mr. Figuera, as you look at last year, as I said earlier, 576 murders last year. The police commissioner is saying a 5% reduction, 16 murders for this year already. What's the outlook for 2024, Mr. Figuera?
Well, let us now put it in context. What has happened to Trinidad and Tobago with the evolution of criminality in Trinidad and Tobago? Commencing in 2017 with a series of rivers of blood that have flowed since then. This is unheard of in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. The model we was previously used with the peak in murders in 2008 and subsequently its abeyance simply does not apply to what has happened since 2017. Any form of analysis based on that old model is hollow, because it is an entirely new phenomenon that has appeared, unheard of in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And the most pressing reality from 2017 to now, especially from 2022, is the acts of violence that can only destabilize the social order. So it is no longer violence in pursuit of an end within an illicit economy. We have now a political dimension to the violence arising from developments within the illicit economy. And clearly, there is an ongoing attempt to destabilize the social order with graphic violence stressing multiple victims at a given point in time.
So you believe there is a deliberate attempt by people to destabilize the country?
There is a deliberate attempt, because what is happening is that in this battle between two incompatible business models in the illicit economy, the business model that is on the losing end is now desperate and resorting to its final means, which is political action. But that is to the detriment of Trinidad and Tobago, because all it will do is that it will turn Trinidad and Tobago into Murderlandia, because we were already on the way, we were already Gunlandia. Now we have moved into Murderlandia with a political intent. And what is very worrying to me is that I see the very evolution appearing in Tobago. So the multiple shootings on the drag in Scarborough this weekend past, was very disturbing to me, knowing what it is to live and work in Tobago and to lie on that street, on that same drag in the night.
But Mr. Figueroa, what is the intention? What are people trying to achieve?
That is the hardest question to answer, because since 2022, I have been trying to decipher of what is the purpose. Because you are certainly not retaining your control. You are playing catch up and you have lost. And what is very disturbing to me is that this practice is not unique to Trinidad and Tobago. It's unique to Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. But it is commonly used in Central and South America. So the latest example we have of what extent it can go to is what is going on in Ecuador today. And that is what is worrying, because there is a momentum that will get out of the control of the perpetrators. And the momentum becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you're playing with fire.
Mr. Figueroa, you said you have lost. Who are we speaking about?
There are two conflicting business models in the illicit trades of the world today emanating from the Western Hemisphere. The traditional Colombian business model, which was always dominant since the second half of the 1960s, and the Mexican business model. And the Mexican business model is now the dominant model emanating from the Western Hemisphere. So remember, in 2008, when we had the spike of murders, that was a short-lived affair because there was transition within the Colombian model. What has happened to Trinidad and Tobago now is entirely different from what went on in 2008. And what is demanded of the political order of Trinidad and Tobago today, even before 2017, is to recognize the reality of what is going on the ground and embrace the fact that our entire national security apparatus is catching up with a rapidly evolving reality on the ground. And all these old methodologies that have repeatedly failed and you keep reapplying is not going to dance and mitigate this transnational organized crime war that is going on in Trinidad and Tobago. So the entire national security apparatus has to be literally dragged, screaming and bawling into the 21st century. But that is the job of the politicians.
Mr. Figueroa, there is the perception, and it is an old perception, that we as a country, we have lost control of the crime situation for a long time ago, for many years. I'm sure that governments will tell you differently. The police will tell you differently. But what's your assessment? Have we lost control?
We have lost control because we fail to understand and to deal with the threat when it first appeared in the second half of the 1960s. And this threat, this transnational organized crime threat, is now in its fifth evolution. And we are yet to create a national security apparatus that could have handled the first four evolutionary phases. That is how backward we are. And it's only talk, political spin. But that is not going to stop an alternate lifestyle that has taken root in this country and is now socializing generation after generation to embrace this lifestyle. The issue is an alternate lifestyle was allowed to take root in communities and to control the streets of these communities. And what we do now, when faced with the product of this, we always looking for people to blame. So, for example, we blame parents. But you have perfectly adequate parents in the home. But when those children leave the home, even the streets don't belong are not under the control of the state. The schools are not under the control of the state. Social control has collapsed. And what we refuse to understand is that this alternate lifestyle is socializing people with an entirely different value system from what we were raised to accept as the part in life.
So then the question is, Mr. Figuera, how do we change this lifestyle? How do we get young people to veer away from a life that they are living into a path of the straight and narrow? How do you do that?
If you are not engaging with the players in this alternate lifestyle and dismantling their organizations, and young people actually see them stand before a judge and get 25, 35 years in jail, then the lifestyle continues to attract. Because it is the dream. It's the dream of wealth and the dream of bling and the dream of badness. And what are you offering to engage with this alternate lifestyle and this alternate mechanism of life? What are you offering? Constipated judiciary, overflowing remand yards, a policing system that is dismally poor on detection. So, what we are offering young people to not be attracted by the streets is not working. It's not working. And remember, the operating dream is no delayed gratification, you know. You want it now. And that is why you turn away from education. How many years we have to go to school? That is delayed gratification. We are not into that. We want everything now.
Mr. Figuera, how do you feel about these new assurances from the Police Commissioner? Police Commissioner Erla Christopher has once more placed her faith in God to turn around the country's crime surge. She expressed confidence yesterday that murders, other crimes, and a lack of respect for police officers will decline. She says, we know with God's grace and His help, we will succeed, but tides will turn again, and we will see the success we desire.
That is on my part an event that exhibited desperation yesterday. It exhibited desperation because policing is boots on the ground, intelligence, penetration, creating a case, getting witnesses, and having that case quickly tried and justice dispensed. That is the only way you can engage with this threat. Not with a customs and excise in the present condition it is in. Not with an immigration department in the present condition in which it is in. Not with an SSA that is totally silent. Not with a Coast Guard that is way behind the curve. That is the fundamental reality. So calling for the intervention of God is desperation. What are you doing with your own hands to help yourself?
I think what you're suggesting this morning, sir, is really a total overhaul of the entire system.
The system from August 31st, 1962 to now, the system has remained intact. It has not been evolved to face the constant evolving nature of the threat. And we continue to speak about the threat in delusion. It is now past the denial. It is delusion, where you want to convince people it's not as bad as it is. But the reality is, you are killing people purely on spontaneous instances regardless of the damage you're going to cause. So you're going after an individual who is in a group of people, and you're going to pull up an open fire on everybody. That is utter recklessness.
How do you feel, Mr. Figuera? I think that last year there was some level of optimism when it was announced that both the government and opposition would engage in crime talks. We have since seen what has happened to those talks. The opposition continues to express interest in having these talks, but how do you view what has happened with these talks? And are you optimistic that if these talks are held, that there could be some change in the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago?
The politics of race continues to be the major impediment for getting the politics right that is necessary for saving this country. Because since social control has collapsed, it is the political system that is charged with, under the Constitution, to ensure social control by socializing people with a specific body of values by which we will police ourselves to abide by the law. So from the time social control collapses in a social order, it's the failure of the politicians, not the people. So when you have a political order that is now out of control, where it is now only engaging in actions that it deems necessary for the survival of the players within the politics of race. So everything now is expediency and political strategy. Everything is political expediency and spin and vision and how it comes across. Even burials for former prime ministers. That is the desperation that has set in. But in a case of desperation, there is no coherent, cohesive, strategic action possible because you're grasping at straws.
When we're speaking about socializing people, Mr. Figuera, doesn't that have to happen at a very young stage, you think? Does it apply to people who are now steeped and involved in criminal activity and gang activity?
When you have lost that point of social control through socializing young minds, you have reached a stage now where, and this is what the people of Trinidad and Tobago must understand, the problem we have now is that the horses have already bolted and the barn burned down. The only way you can retrieve this situation is by multifaceted, simultaneous action. And if you do not have effective national security action that is dismantling organized crime organizations, then you talk about this program and that program and the other program is just political spin, because the alternate lifestyle remains in control of the street and the schools, the very culture. So that is the reality. So there is no way to restore social control without embracing the threat and dismantling the threat to dismantle the power it wields on the streets.
Judging from what you have been seeing in recent times, the types of criminal activity, the use of these high-powered weapons, multiple deaths, is this a good time Mr. Figuera, you think that those in authority should be thinking about a state of emergency?
Well, what is going to happen with a state of emergency is that a state of emergency will have no beneficial ends to Trinidad, to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Because if you do not have the means to dismantle an organized crime group, effectively dismantle by winning prosecution, and I'm not talking about people in the remand yard 9 and 10 years waiting on the case to call and the witnesses gone every one time, then that state of emergency, you're using a state of emergency as social control. And what you're doing is that you're wrecking the already limping economy along to achieve nothing. And when the state of emergency is over, the violence comes back in a bang. You actually could, when you follow it on a daily basis, you actually see that in response to a month of a low homicide rate, the months that follow is blood spill all over the place. And you say to yourself, what is this? Isn't this deliberate? So that is where we have reached.
What about the legislation that is in place to deal with gangs in Trinidad and Tobago? Have they worked well, you think?
The burden of evidence that must be collected in any case arising from a criminal charge demands much more. Gang legislation does not make it easier for you to prosecute and win that case if you simply don't have the evidence. And the most important evidence is warm bodies testifying. And if you're not getting warm bodies, and the major deterrent to warm bodies is the length of time that case takes to call and to complete. And whilst you are waiting, you are out there expecting them to kill you at any time. Apparently, like those who are running the state apparatus in this country, like they don't have a clue of what this alternate life is. So your remand yard is totally not fit for purpose, because your remand yard is a gangland incubator. You have people sitting down in there waiting for years, and gangland literally runs the place.
Mr. Figuera, does the citizen have a role in all of this? And I'm not talking about what the police will tell you if you see something, say something. I'm talking about a greater role. Is there a need for the citizen to speak out more about the crime situation? Is there a need for the constituents to approach their MPs? What should citizens do in a situation such as this?
Well, in a situation of such unceasing gun violence for such a lengthy period of time in this country, the citizen response is quite muted and very deep and shows signs of the classic divisiveness of the politics of race. Because what is happening, the very protest against the violence shows the divisiveness of the society and the voting public. So the question now arises is that each and every one of us now has to ask ourselves a fundamental question. Is this politics of race working for me? Is it working for me? Clearly no.
Mr. Figuera, as always, thank you very much for speaking with us this morning. We do appreciate your very blunt perspective on the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much again, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, bye for now. So it's time for another break. We are coming back.